I personally believe, and again, I don't know where he's going to get drafted. He played at Marshall. We're talking about Mike Green. And I think Mike Green might be the guy that has the most diversified pass rush arsenal of any of the rushers.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. The crown is yours. He is back again. The civilian GOAT, Greg Cosell. We're doing Mondays for a bunch of different reasons, which don't really matter to you guys, other than I want to have plenty of time to digest our Greg Cosell conversations, especially before the draft, which is now officially 2.5 weeks away, which is amazing. There also is a decent amount of news since Thursday morning's show, right? We had a quarterback trade, which I'll ask Greg about. We have a new high watermark in terms of how high a tight end is getting paid in the NFL. A terrific player, did a couple of his games last year for CBS. So we'll get to all of that momentarily. But first, it is a new week, which means I'm going to give away new winners, right? You guys want these awesome press passes that I collect over the course of the season. So many cool ones that I can sign and send to you. People love them. You don't know anybody else that has one, so you might as well be the only person in the neighborhood to be able to show everybody what a press pass looks like. All you have to do is do something on social media, at Ross Tucker Pod, at Ross Tucker NFL, engage, comment, repost, whatever, or take advantage of any of the sponsors you hear on the show, like my beloved Game Time app, or take a picture of your Labatt receipt. That works as well. Or you can just make a comment, like a lot of people do already on the Greg Cosell episodes, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Okay, so Greg, before we get into the defensive line, which is supposed to be a very good class and continue our draft series, when there's major news, I like to get your take on it. Maybe even not major, right? But the Dallas Cowboys made a trade with the New England Patriots. Can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, but they didn't trade much, but they traded something to bring in quarterback Joe Milton, who did some really positive things in that one start last year. In fact, so positive, Greg, that they won the game and it cost them the first pick and said they're drafting fourth. So we can tie it into the draft a little bit. How about a little refresher course on Joe Milton for the Cowboys fans and to a lesser extent the Patriots fans out there?
Yeah, Joe Milton had a really good game in that final game. And I think what was probably surprising to me and maybe others was just the accuracy with which he threw the ball. Because I remember doing him coming out of Tennessee, and big-armed kid, big kid, looks the part, throws a beautiful ball, comes out easily. Obviously, he was in that Tennessee offense, which is different, and there's a lot of learning that is then involved when you get to the NFL because of the nature of that Tennessee offense, which may be as pure a form of air raid as there is in college football. We're not going to go into all the details of air raid, but the point is that there's learning that needs to be done when you get to the NFL. And I thought in that final game that he played really, really well, threw the ball exceptionally well, saw things well. I think that's the first thing I was interested in seeing, just because, as I said, he had to learn in his year in the league, and he wasn't playing. So it's a really interesting trade because Milton is a guy that if you were to put it together, there is a lot there, Ross. And again, Dak Prescott is obviously the starter in Dallas. We've seen reports that he lost significant weight and looks better than ever. But, and quarterbacks do play longer now, so we have no idea what their feeling is about Dak Prescott in Dallas and what they plan on doing. But Milton certainly looked good in that one start.
It's interesting because also since Thursday's show, Greg, the Chargers signed Trey Lance. They bring him into the fold. And Geno Smith got a pretty nice 2-year extension from the Raiders. The reason why I'm tying those guys together is because Trey Lance was really highly thought of coming out of North Dakota State, was obviously drafted high by the
Sure.
49ers, an organization that we all have a lot of respect for, especially at that position. And it just hasn't happened for him either in San Francisco or in Dallas. He couldn't really beat out Cooper Rush to get the backup job there. Meanwhile, Geno Smith, I don't know how many years he was a backup, Greg. I mean, there might have been years he was third string. I can't even remember. And now he's kind of battled all the way back to being a top half of the league quarterback and making 40 million bucks a year. I'm not asking you to compare those guys. I guess I'm just curious, are there lessons there
Right.
from Geno Smith's resurgence and or Trey Lance, whatever went wrong there? Which part of that, Greg, he didn't play very much at North Dakota State. He really didn't
No, he
have
did
that
not.
many reps.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. There's no way to answer that for sure because look, Geno Smith, I believe, started two full seasons with the Jets early in his career, if I'm not mistaken, maybe three. I think it was two, and obviously he was very up and down, very erratic, inconsistent. One does not know what would have happened if he was given another chance, another season. You just don't know that, but obviously that did not happen. And then he moved on to sort of journeyman status, being a backup quarterback until the Seattle situation arose. And now, as you said, you can definitely line up and play with Geno Smith. He's always thrown the ball really, really well. The thing that probably prevents him from really being top-level quarterback, and I think this was true early in his career, and it does tie into Trey Lance, is he doesn't see it quite as quickly as you'd like. And even to this day, he's not bad at it. Obviously, he wouldn't be able to perform at the level that he does if he didn't see it at all, but he just doesn't see it quite as quickly and as clearly at times. Not all the time. I don't want to people think I mean all the time, as you would like. And I think that's Trey Lance's issue as well. And he had an opportunity in an offense under Kyle Shanahan where it's really well defined, presenting a lot of clean looks and clean reads, and he didn't grasp that. It didn't come to him. So who knows what his future holds at this point? Obviously, he's with the Chargers now with Harbaugh. We'll see. I mean, obviously, he's not going to play, so he's really in a learning situation.
Let's get to the draft, Greg. It's been an awesome, awesome draft series. It always is. Last week we did tight ends and O-line. Before that, you can check out, obviously, wide receivers and running backs. People love. We do not one, but two quarterback episodes. People still checking those out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. It's the beauty of podcasts or YouTube or this time of the year. Let's start, though, with the D-line in general, Greg. Everybody and their brothers saying how deep it is and how many guys there are and blah, blah, blah. Is that what you have found to be the case as well? And is it both edge and interior or just one or the other?
I think the interior, the D tackle class is really strong. And as you know, there's a lot of different kinds of players. They're different, but it's really, really strong. I was told by someone in the know that he wouldn't be surprised if there were 20 D tackles taken in the first 3 rounds. And what's interesting is you wonder if that position, Ross, is increasing in importance because of the way the NFL game is evolving. A lot more quick game throws, a lot more RPOs, where edge rushers in normal down and distance situations are not really factors. So you're really looking for interior pressure, quick interior pressure. So the D tackle position is becoming more and more important. And you always look at the team that wins a Super Bowl and look what Jalen Carter and Milton Williams did for the Eagles. So that position has become increasingly important. Just one quick comment about the edge players. I think there's a lot of guys who are really good athletes, but need to learn how to rush the quarterback. And those are two different things.
It's such a good point. It's such a good point, Greg, because I can tell you, I can go back to when I was playing. There are guys that would test incredible and they'd look awesome.
Yep.
And then you'd go, and if they don't really have a counter move, if they're not really good with their hands, they're just not going to win against NFL offensive
No,
tackles.
they're
Like,
not.
I don't care how fast you are. Nobody is so fast that they just go around the corner and get a sack every time.
No, no, yeah, and when you see guys do that in college, yeah, you take note. Oh, they've got good speed and they're quick, and that's great. I mean, that's a good trait to have, but that's not going to happen in the league like that.
Is there a top guy, Greg? On let's start with the edge guys. Is there a top guy that jumped out to you when you were watching the tape?
Well, it's funny. I'm going to play off what you just said. I personally believe, and again, I don't know where he's going to get drafted. He played at Marshall. We're talking about Mike Green. And I think Mike Green might be the guy that has the most diversified pass rush arsenal of any of the rushers. Now, he's 6'3" and 1/8", 251. Arm length isn't great, and all these things do factor in to the way teams think about players. But you watch him, and he's got a plan of how to attack offensive tackles. He's got lateral quickness. He's got short stroke power. But he had moves. He had counters. He understood how to rush the quarterback. And, you look at other guys who are better athletes, have better measurables, longer arms, more explosive in their movement. But this guy he had, to me, the most diverse pass rush arsenal of the group. He had a lot of tools in his toolbox. And I'm really anxious, number one, to see where he gets drafted and to see his career. Now, they did play Ohio State, and he actually looked very good playing against Ohio State.
I saw one spin move he had for a sack against Ohio State that was nasty.
Nasty. He has a great spin move. Yeah, it was against the right tackle, Fryer. It was a great spin move, and he showed that numerous times throughout the season.
What about the Penn State kid who most people expect to go in the top 3, Greg? Abdul Carter, which was just a wild story. I mean, I've known him since high school, or at least followed him since high school. Last spring, he said to James Franklin, I don't want to play linebacker. I want to play edge rusher. And Penn State said, okay, we'll give you a try. And it worked. And, they didn't have Micah Parsons at edge rusher either. Hey, Penn State, if you're watching, maybe put these guys at edge rusher. Although, in fairness to them, they usually have a bunch of other guys, which is why Micah didn't play on the edge. They would blitz him instead, and why Abdul didn't either.
Well, Carter's not a tough, evaluation. I mean, you just see that this guy's got size, he's got length, he's got suddenness, he's got explosiveness, he's got first step get off. He can challenge the edge. He can break down the technique of offensive tackles just with his quickness off the ball, so they get into sort of reactive recovery mode before they can set their house and establish the needed positioning. He's got bend, he's got flexibility. I think the power element of his game needs to be worked on just a little bit. I think that's important. You need a power element as an edge pass rusher. They used him at Penn State much the same way the Cowboys use Micah Parsons. And Parsons, at this moment in time, is a much more powerful player than Carter. But if Carter can develop some more power to his game, he's essentially that kind of player in the NFL, where you can line him up as an edge rusher, you can move him around, which Penn State did a ton, by the way, particularly on third down. He was that stand-up joker in the middle of the defense, much like we see Micah Parsons with the Cowboys. So he's not a hard evaluation. I mean, this guy is an explosive athlete.
Greg, you make a great point, though. You have to have a power element.
Correct.
You have to be able to threaten them with speed to power. Otherwise, they never have to sit and wait on you. They can dance with you, and they don't really have to anchor. Now, I've seen him in person. He's a pretty well put together kid, but I wasn't checking out his lower body, right? Like, I don't know just how much lead he's got in his pencil, so to speak.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you've been to the O-line masterminds, as I have, the last number of years down, that Duke Manyweather and those guys put together. And, for me, it was a great opportunity to talk to a lot of offensive tackles. And I just remember having a great conversation with Andrew Whitworth, and that's exactly what he spoke about, that if you cannot beat me with power, he said, eventually you got to get through me. So, eventually that has to happen. Once in a while, a guy beats you with a quick move, and that happens every once in a while. But you got to get past, you got to get through the guy. You got to get through the tackle. And, he made that point to me, and it really resonated.
There are so many guys, Greg, we could talk about. There's a couple from Georgia, a couple from A&M, a couple from Ohio State. Then you have Ezeruku, the Boston College kid,
Yeah, he's
Pierce
interesting.
from Tennessee. And, out of that group, I like to kind of have you talk about
Yeah.
a guy that either you really like or maybe you have some more concerns
Well,
about.
I'm going to give you two guys that, well, here, let's start with Shemar Stewart. He's the classic case of an unbelievable athlete, Ross. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see him at all, but this guy, you just watch him move. This guy is a ridiculous athlete. He's fluid, he's explosive, he's huge. I mean, he just, this is what you want. But at this moment in time, he's the perfect poster child for he really doesn't know how to rush the quarterback. So he'll get drafted because the measurables and the athletic testing is off the charts. And I haven't seen him in person, but I guarantee he looks like Tarzan. So, now you have to teach this kid how to rush the quarterback. And can it be done? Sure. But, you also hear coaches say that, hey, some guys just have a feel for rushing the quarterback. Other guys don't. I remember years ago when DeMarcus Ware was in our broadcast boot camp here at NFL Films, and I got a chance to talk to him about rushing the quarterback, and he spoke in detail, subtle detail, nuance about everything involved in rushing the quarterback. And, that's what someone like Stewart has to learn. It won't happen overnight. I want to mention two guys, though, that you did not mention because we could go through we could do 4 shows on edge pass rushers and D tackles. But there's two guys that I really liked on tape that are not going to be first-round picks, but I think they're going to be good players. One is Braden Swinson from LSU, and the other is Josaiah Stewart from Michigan. He's sort of the third guy on Michigan's D-line after Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. And I think those two guys can be really good NFL edge pass rushers. And like I said, who knows where guys get drafted? It's all over the board this year. But those two guys really stood out to me as guys that could come into the NFL, maybe not day one, but be really good edge pass rushers.
Ooh, I like it. I like when you bring up names other people aren't talking about. Let's go to the inside guys, Greg. The interior D tackles. Was there a guy in that group that really jumped out to you?
Well, Mason Graham's obviously a really good prospect, so we'll leave him alone for the moment. But the guy that fascinates me the most is the Ole Miss kid, Nolen, Walter Nolen. He's incredibly strong. I mean, he has plays in the SEC that look like Jalen Carter's tape at Georgia, where he just ragdolls offensive linemen. And we're talking about in the SEC. He's a power 3 technique. Now, he's one of those guys that is just super strong. I mean, obviously at Ole Miss, he lined up in multiple positions, but I don't really see him. And maybe in a pass rush situation, he can move inside. But at 6'3 3/4, 296, he's a power 3 technique. And he is just a really strong man. He's got that kind of country strength, It's just, I mean, and there is sort of a twitched up explosiveness to him as well. Sometimes it doesn't look like that because of the power nature of his game. But I really like Walter Nolen, and I'm very curious to see where he gets drafted.
Ooh, okay. I like that. I've heard that name quite a bit. The Mason Graham one is interesting, Greg, because usually D tackles that are going as high as he's supposed to go, they're usually physical phenoms. That's not really the case with Mason Graham when you look at his physical testing numbers.
And they're also pass rushers. And he's an interesting guy because, he's really got first step quickness. He's got explosiveness to him. He's got a compact, powerful punch. He's got heavy hands. He's clearly a really good athlete. He's a fun guy to watch because he's got relentless energy and activity. Everything about him looks good. But he doesn't really get to the quarterback that much. I mean, he does at times, obviously, but he needs to work on his pass rush traits, which at this point are not really there, despite all these really strong physical traits, the natural quickness, the movement, the constant activity. He's another 3 technique player. He lost weight to get to the combine because, he looked heavy to me on tape. and he got to 296 at the combine, but he's another guy with short arms. So again, I still think he's going to get drafted high, but it'll be really interesting to see his development in the NFL because he's not really a true pass rusher at this moment in time. And as you said, Ross, normally guys that are in the top 10 at D tackle are pass rushers.
Yeah, what about some of these other guys, Greg? Whether it's Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Tyleik Williams. You could even get to some of the other guys down the line as well. Deion Walker from Kentucky. Anybody else? I remember I was impressed seeing Ty Robinson from Nebraska in person. Anybody else that really jumped out to you?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of guys at D tackle. Believe me. I mean, you could go through a really long list here. Harmon's an interesting guy. He's really a 1-year player. I'll give you a few names that I liked. I really liked Joshua Farmer from Florida State. I think that he's an ascending type player. He's really strong inside in the run game, but I think there's pass rush traits to be further developed. I think Tyleik Williams from Ohio State is another really fascinating guy. Same kind of player, strong, powerful run defender, but there are pass rush traits to be cultivated as well. Jamari Caldwell, who's the other D tackle at Oregon who plays with Derek Harmon, he's 342 pounds, but you watch him play and he has really light, quick feet. I'm really curious. I'm sure he'd start his career basically as a base defense D tackle, but there's really light, quick feet there that are really, really interesting. The kid from Toledo is fascinating, Darius Alexander. Smaller, obviously not a Power 5 conference with the MAC, but he's a really strong prospect.
Check him out on social media. He's the man. He'll be with us the next couple Mondays as well at Greg Cosell. Linebackers next week. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Love Labatt. Love getting free stuff. They've combined two of my favorite things. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear. Such a smart promotion, right? Just listen, you're buying Labatt Blue Light anyway, or at least you should be, okay? When you do it, just snap a quick photo of your receipt, upload it to rewards.labattusa.com immediately, and then check out some of the gear they have. I have a decent amount of it. It is awesome. Rewards.labattusa.com.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, want your thoughts on some quarterback news that you and Greg talked about briefly earlier in the show. The Raiders signed Geno Smith to a 2-year extension worth around $40 million per year, and the Patriots, they traded Joe Milton at a 7th rounder to the Cowboys for a 5th-round pick.
By the way, I should have mentioned this earlier, Jack. Greg was presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Good for Geno. I love redemption stories, and it still really is only for sure getting 1 year, but I think he's got some money coming next year, regardless of what happens this year. I guess my biggest thing, I'm surprised the Patriots didn't get more for Joe Milton. I'm surprised based on what Greg said. I mean, they basically got the equivalent of a 6th-round pick, which is what they used on Joe Milton, but now he's got a year in a system, and he has an NFL game in which he played really well. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that nobody's willing to give up more than that for him. That's probably the part of it that jumped out the most. I mean, what the rest of the league is saying is that, yeah, we saw that one game, and we still don't really think he's that good. We're sticking with our college evaluation, which is that the guy is not going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But I guess what I would say is it's a really cheap backup for the next 3 years if you thought enough of that one game he started to have him as your backup. But I think maybe there are people that aren't sure he's the kind of the veteran backup you want in case things go bad.
And meanwhile, the Cardinals, they kept one of their young core guys in the fold for the foreseeable future. They signed Trey McBride to a 4-year deal, paying him $19 million a year. Love
this. Talked to Trey when I did a Colorado State-Fresno State game when he and his brother were playing for Colorado State. Awesome, awesome guy. And now tight ends were chronically underpaid. I'm thrilled for him. I'm happy, quite frankly, for that position group because those guys, they deserve it. I don't know why they're paid so much less than receivers.
And a couple other roster notes. The Bears, they bring in Case Keenum as a veteran mentor for Caleb Williams. The Broncos, they signed former Colts quarterback Sam Ehlinger. Chargers, they signed Trey Lance, as you guys mentioned earlier. The Raiders released Jack Jones. The Chiefs are bringing back safety Mike Edwards. And both Julio Jones and Teron Armstead retired after outstanding NFL careers.
So I think I'm going to focus on the last thing, those two guys. The Jack Jones thing, I don't know. He just wears out his welcome where people just can't take it anymore. But, Julio might have been Friday. Teron might have been Saturday. I don't know that they'll get any attention in other news cycles today. But I just can't. I hate when we just move on so quickly from guys that had unbelievable NFL careers. Unbelievable, both of them. Maybe in particular Julio, but you're talking about guys that made well over $100 million playing pro football. Congratulations to both them, and good luck in the next phase of life. Obviously, we had Teron on recently here on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. I think we're done here. So I forget what the most well-known drink is at the Masters. I do know this. If it has Smirnoff vodka in it, it'd be delicious. And Smirnoff vodka isn't going to cost you a fortune, which, by the way, is one of the things the Masters is known for, right? It doesn't cost you a fortune for the food and the drinks there. Huge fan of Smirnoff because they've been sponsoring our show for a while. They're the official vodka of the NFL. And they're my number one draft pick, with the draft being a couple weeks away. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. I'm telling you, Smirnoff should be your number one draft pick when it comes to vodka.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. What are we, a month from Mother's Day? Get it done, fellas. myfrontpagestory.com. Just get it done now. Lock it in. You'll feel so good about it, whether it's for your mom or your significant other. And you automatically get a signed autograph from me. myfrontpagestory.com. Backofficescheduler.com. Humanheadnyc.com. Sporticulture. Pizza Boy Brewing.